When the first trailer dropped for Mario Strikers Chart... I already messed up. When the first trailer dropped for Mario Strikers Battle League, me and my friends were excited to pick this one up. When the second trailer dropped, we decided we're not getting it. So, what changed between those two trailers?
Nothing! Absolutely nothing!
And that's the problem. The first trailer looked like a promising baseline for a much bigger game, but the second trailer confirmed that was the entire game. I don't know what's worse, the comparisons to Ultra Smash or Back 4 Blood. The gameplay actually has some parts where I like what I've seen, such as giving the tackle a more supportive use, or adding item boxes to the game so that way if you can't get the ball you can still arm yourself. On the other hand, I'm not as crazy for the Hyper Strike being just an item instead of a technique, and the lack of any stage gimmicks, even as an option, concerns me that this game is going to be hyper-focused on competitive play, and in general, I'm not a fan of the slower movement. But overall, it looks fine. Shouldn't that be all that matters then? The gameplay looks good, warts and all?
No! That's what we should expect at bare minimum!
There's a difference between saying the gameplay is the most important part of a game, and the gameplay is the only important part of a game. Because the thing is, you can enjoy a game's gameplay and still not enjoy the game overall because of what it lacks. And that's what this video is going to be focused on. This game, based on the trailers and gameplay released, is really lacking. Did you know that the campaign in Mario Strikers Charge was co-op up to 4 players? Man, can you imagine that with online? Well, it's gonna have to stick to your imagination, because it ain't happening. Not just because the trailer didn't announce it, but also because the game literally couldn't. No, literally, thanks to the removal of sidekicks and everyone now being a super captain, that means that there's not enough characters for even a 4-team cup to happen. Okay, well, mission mode could pick up the slack, but one mission per captain wouldn't cut it. They'd have to give multiple per character. And if they did that, well, one, it's going to make adding new characters to it very difficult, or they'd have to just say new characters don't get missions, period. And two, why would you leave that out of the trailer that's meant to convince people to buy, nay pre-order the game that's releasing in a month? Honestly, it's looking like the online mode is mostly for the Battle League, and a lot of the Battle League is just cosmetic customization, not much in the way of actual game modes. And I still remember Mario Golf, which also left most of its content to just play the online multiplayer to grind coins, and even that had a single player mode at least. So for me and my friends, we see two likely outcomes to the armor system, and we don't like either of them. One, it turns off new players because it's hard to get good at the game, or it makes the competitive scene just evolve into a meta. Now, as for how it can make the game harder to get good at, in a sense, you can play against the same character 5 times, but because they have different stats each time thanks to the armor system, well, it means what you learn against one player is unlikely to carry to the others, since that person's Wario and the next Wario might have completely different stats. And in terms of a meta forming, well, given how competitively focused this game is, it only makes sense people are going to try to find the best combination of character and armor. And with how small the roster is, the last thing this game needs is a meta that defines who you do and don't choose. What really concerns me the most, though, is unlocking them. It seems like there's 5 of each armor type, and there's 3 types overall. Do you have to unlock them individually for each character, or when you unlock a piece, do you get every character's equivalent? How well do the matches pay out in terms of coins? Do you have to keep grinding the single gameplay mode over and over again like you did in Super Rush? Is armor going to be purchase fodder so that way you don't have money for the more enticing unlockables? Is armor going to be the main thing that you purchase and there's stuff on the side to get? Or is armor the only purpose coins are going to serve? I don't have the answers to any of this. But what I do know is that in the second trailer, the armor got the most attention of any given gameplay mechanic, despite not really telling us anything that you couldn't figure out by just looking at the screen for 10 seconds. And when left to my own speculation, I can't help but think that the armor customization is meant to offset the fact that there's barely anyone to play as in this game. I don't know if this is controversial or not, but I think the Mega Strike system from Charged was a way better system than the Super Strike from the first game. Well, maybe not way better. The 6-point system was absolute overkill and really should have been toned down, if only just a little. No, what makes me say it's much better is simply that even if you get the timing perfectly with the Mega Strike, you're not guaranteed points. By taking control of the goalie, the opposition has a chance to stop you from scoring, or at least minimize how many goals you get. So, the Hyper Strike system going back to what the first game did, where if you get the timing perfectly it's completely unblockable, not a fan of, to put it politely. Oh, and on top of that, it's now turned into a power-up that you have to pick up and then use before it expires. So instead of being a technique that you have to measure if you have the ability to use because of the positioning of the enemy, it's now just basically a gimmick that the game decides when you get to use. Of all the ways to rebalance it, this is easily the lamest. It's not as lame as the character roster, though. Seriously, Mario Kart 7 no longer has the worst roster of a modern Mario spin-off. For the record, it's not just that Daisy isn't present. Bowser Jr., Diddy Kong, PD Piranha, all 7 sidekicks aside from Toad. And if you want to go the extra mile, the robots from the first game. The best example of how ridiculously small this roster is the screenshot of a full 20-player lobby. Notice how every character is duplicated once, because that is the least ridiculous they can make it look. Imagine this in an actual lobby where there's like 5 Waluigis or whatever the best character turns out to be. And again, I don't think there's going to be any unlockable characters. First of all, the trailer probably would have said so, if for no other reason than to give assurance that yes, there's more than 10. But no, not you start with 10 characters. They said there are 10 characters. And even if that is the case, how little content is in the game if Daisy has to be unlocked? Seriously, Mario Kart 7 and Mario Kart DS are the only times this happened, and they had really small rosters. Either way, there's really no reason to assume there's any more than the 10 characters we've seen at launch, beyond a refusal to believe otherwise, because it's just that hard to believe. Okay, so I'm happy this game still has a good sense of personality to it, and the characters are every bit as expressive and well animated as I'd expect from something from Next Level. But I prefer and really miss the more dystopian vibes from Charge. You know, how everything was on the verge of falling apart. On top of that, I noticed this game in general just seems less violent, both in terms of the game having less in the way of sore loser animations, and I haven't seen anything along the lines of damage residue, like when you get electrocuted and as a result your body and armor's charred. In and of itself, this hardly matters. But when you add this to the lack of content and the lukewarm gameplay, it really does just help make this feel like an incomplete package. Now, for anyone wondering why I'm not bringing up the idea of updates, it's a few reasons. First, I'm just not paying $60 for a game that needs to be updated to have an acceptable amount of content, let alone a surplus. If the content that's going to keep me playing comes via updates, why would I not just wait for the game to be updated to a point where I feel it's worth $60? Second is that Mario Tennis Aces and Mario Golf Super Rush did not leave the best taste when it comes to updates. Sure, Tennis Aces had a lot of characters, but half of them were already in the game and just got touched up, plus another 2 were made using pre-made assets. So only 5 characters were made for the ground up for that game. Golf only got 5 characters. One of which was basically the final boss, Toadette, and 2 of them already had high-definition models in the game, so only 2 new characters were made for that. Tennis Aces got a nice addition to its single-player mode, but it was more of just an extra epilogue, something that most games would have launched with back during the GameCube game. Both games got a few extra courses for what it's worth, but not much in the way of additional content. Tennis Aces only got the bare minimum of minigames, most of which were derivative from the single-player mode. By extension, Golf got even less, it never even got a ring shot mode added. Now, with Strikers being a more complicated game to make characters for, given just how animated everything is, and how little in terms of reusable assets there appears to be, it's going to, at best, take a long time for this game to be updated. And that leads to the final concern. Mario Party Superstars was a game many, myself included, thought was going to get updated, but Nintendo never said it would. And go figure, 6 months later, it hasn't been. No talks of it, no promises of it, Nintendo never said it would, and it never has. Given that they're not willing to say that Strikers Charged, at the time of this video's making, is getting updates, let's just say I have no reason to think they will. I really hope I'm wrong about this game. I want to be wrong, and I will happily make a video saying I'm wrong if I am. But based on everything I've seen in Nintendo's track record with these spin-offs on the Switch, I went from a potential customer to someone who's actively disinterested in the game. Shame, really.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.